science degree in nursing from East Carolina University. She also holds a certification in the care of adult medical and surgical patients. She is a wife, mother, and born-again child of the Most High King.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Family Health Matters. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers, and we are live in the studio of Awesome Radio 106.9 FM and Awesome Radio Facebook page. Welcome, Facebook fans. Yay! Welcome, radio people. We're so glad to be here in the studio. It's been a minute since I've been live, so I'm excited to be back live with you. And we are here every Thursday every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. And I have again with me in the studio live my friend that I have gotten to know over the past couple of months. She's been working me hard, but we're doing good. Miss Kiara Robbins. Yay!
Hi, everybody.
And we're so glad to have her here with us today. And she is a fitness trainer, exercise physiologist.
Yes.
What else, Kiera?
A little bit of everything, but definitely currently a student as well. So just
Yes.
a little bit of everything, just trying to stay busy, right?
Yeah, well, I think you are succeeding. Well, we're going to jump in because we got a really good topic, and we've got the holidays coming. We got stress going on. We got food going on. So
Yeah.
we're going to be talking today about managing food and exercise.
Yes.
And I'm just like, whoa, food and exercise. I've been trying to manage that all my life. So we're going to ask Kiara. She's going to share some really, really good points and tips on how we can make it through the holidays and without stressing. And also after the holidays are over with, there will be okay and not look back and go, oh my God, what did I do? So we don't want to undo all the hard work we've done over the summer to get in shape and to feel better and sort of undo it over the holiday season. So Kiara, let's jump into this and just talk a little bit about the best kinds of exercise, just in general, exercises that you would be doing. What are just so for somebody like me who's not trying to run any marathons or anything, but just sort of staying healthy and maybe drop a couple pounds here and there and some inches, what are just some of the basic common exercises that's good out there?
Well, the recommendation, of course, is aerobic exercise 3 to 7 days a week, or about 150 minutes typically. And then on top of it, you also want to do resistance training, and then combination training. Typically, that's a merge of basically the aerobic side and the resistance side as well. And really at the end of the day, when it comes to like losing weight, things like that, majority of the effort actually comes in with the nutrition aspect of things, and then the exercise is kind of like the plus that comes along with it, that helps you with like the toning, the feeling, the positive impacts of feeling good, things like that. So exercises that you could do no matter what, we always talk about this, is walking. That is everybody's favorite thing. Everybody's probably tired of me saying it, but you can never go wrong with walking.
Okay.
If you have access to going to the gym, you can always take group exercise classes. You can always do an exercise regimen program on like the treadmill, elliptical. You can also do like weight training if you have dumbbells. At home, if you don't have dumbbells, use the walls, use chairs, things like that. That will just help you stay active. So there's no necessarily right way or to help you lose weight. There's just what your body's going to allow for you to do and what makes you feel the most comfortable too.
Okay. Now let me ask you this question. What's the best, exercising, walking, or the treadmill? I've heard different people say pounding in the pavement is good, and some people say, the treadmill is hard on your knees.
It really depends. It
Okay.
depends on the individual. I personally always recommend exercising outside, walking outside.
Okay.
One, you get the benefits of just being outside in the environment,
Okay.
fresh air, getting vitamin D from the sun, just enjoying the environment versus being inside of the buildings. Many of us are stuck in a building all day long with work. Even if it's not work, sometimes we get stuck in the house, just doing things around the house. So if we can get outside of, the four walls, it's always, in my opinion, better.
Okay, okay. So what about walking the track in the gym versus a treadmill?
Well, and once again, there's benefits for
Okay.
both sides. So when it comes to walking the track inside, for example, we have lower risk for hazards such as trips and falls. So if you are somebody who are at risk for falls or are not too steady with on their feet or have bad balance, probably walking an indoor track is a little bit better. And then if it's raining, you got the benefit
Yeah.
of getting out of the rain, or if
Yeah.
it's too hot, or if it's too cold. So there are benefits, but I still think you actually pushing yourself and moving is a little bit better than actually getting on the treadmill.
Okay, okay. So that piece of making yourself go.
Yeah.
So even though you feel like you're walking faster on the treadmill, it's not exerting yourself as much as
Yeah, well,
walking around the track.
You can exert yourself pretty high on the treadmill because you have inclines, you could do declines,
Right,
you
right.
could do. It's a little different and when it comes to that, but walking is natural. So if we can make it as natural as possible, that's always better.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad you said that. I feel better because I like walking more so than I do the treadmill.
And when we're walking on the track and we're doing things like that, let's once again walk with a purpose. Let's walk as if we
Yeah.
are really trying to put some up behind it. If you're able to have a full conversation with me, maybe we're not walking hard enough.
Oh.
That's the difference now. And so
Okay.
we have just a luxury walking, and then we have walking where we're trying to get our heart rate up, and we're really trying to walk with purpose for exercise.
Oh, so luxury walking is still good though, right?
It's still good. All movement is good movement.
Okay, all right.
So I'm not going to take that away. All movement is good movement. Yes.
Okay, now something when you were talking, you mentioned about exercise was like the caveats to the losing weight part, but nutrition is. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So I love to kind of do this comparison with individuals as I explain to them when it comes to weight loss journey. And typically when I kind of bring this visual effect, it makes a little bit more sense of why it would be easier for nutrition. So for example, we have all been there before where we have done an activity for like 30, 45 minutes and we're like, man, I feel really good. And if you have like something like an Apple Watch or a smartwatch of some sort, or you're tracking your information on your smartphone and you go look and you're like 100 calories. That's
Yeah.
it.
I know, I did that today.
So you did all the effort, you're sweating, and you're like,
Uh-huh.
that's all I did. And then when I sit there and I tell you, okay, so you're going to have to do twice that much just to burn 200 calories, or
Right.
let's maybe cut back on some of the sweets, or let's cut back on, maybe not eating this type of food here, or maybe we need to cut back on some of our alcohol drinking and things like that. And it makes a little bit more sense of how
Yeah.
much, or the sugary drinks.
Right.
You look at the sugar drink, turn that back around, and you read like on this on the soda it says 200 calories. 200 calories just to remove that soda, or do you want to walk for 2 hours? So when I
Yeah,
start to tell
yeah.
people that, they start to kind of understand why it's a little bit easier to do the nutrition part. And a lot of times it is because of nutrition we indulge too much in reality with some of our foods. It's all about moderation. Same thing for exercise. We have to do everything in moderation. But sometimes it's just easier on the nutrition side.
Just while you were just thinking about that, I was just thought about today, excuse me, I went to the gym and I did look at my Apple Watch after I finished. Yeah, I went to the gym. I'm so proud. I'm so proud.
Yes, you should be.
And I looked at, as long as I was there, almost an hour, and I looked at what I had, according to the calories that my Apple Watch said. And so it's not necessarily the type of exercise that you do, because I went home and I was going to eat me something, and I looked at the calories was in what I was getting ready to eat, and it was just going to be a bowl of cereal.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
You're just like, I'm just going back, right?
Yeah.
I just burn these calories off and I'm adding it back in. And
Right.
like, is it really beneficial or things like that? Well, so it's a little different. And this is something we could definitely do and have a long conversation on, because the idea of caloric intake and how much you're burning, basically, it is a balance. So
Okay.
you have to look at your overall activity for the day. Now, exercise is just a small part of what you're doing physically active wise for the day. Now, for some individuals, maybe they don't are not as active. It also depends on your metabolism, a lot of different factors, your age, how active you've been, how much muscle mass you have. So there's a lot of other factors that kind of play on with that. But we typically hear about that scale of,
Yeah.
you want to either maintain or you tip the scale in one direction where we don't have as many calories in as we do burning.
Okay.
But yes, looking at your Apple Watch and you're like, I just burned 400 and I'm about to go eat this bowl of cereal with some fruit and next I'm putting it back in.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of other factors that kind of go into it. You have your base numbers, where the average calorie intake we say is 2,000 calories, right? So if you take in 2,000 calories for the day and you're exercising or moving in a regular for 2,000 calories, you're staying at a plateau. So we need to tip the scale in one direction. Either we need to do more movement and more exercise, or we need to cut back on some of
what
our
you're eating.
foods.
Okay.
So, and that's where you start to get kind of the calorie counting and things like that come into place.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it can be tough. It is a science behind it, and when you're very disciplined to it, it works and it's
Right,
doable.
yeah.
But it is hard. It is hard,
It is hard.
especially when you have holidays coming up, and I'm excited for it. I'm ready, regretting. I'm like, oh, I can't wait for the turkey. Can't wait for the mac and cheese.
Oh my gosh.
and then you start to think, you start really calorie counting there, and you're like, I can only have like this little big of this.
Right. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we just want to keep it balanced, especially over the holidays. I always tell people, if you don't gain and you maintain, that's great. That's great. Don't stress yourself out because you decided to have a piece of cake or you decided to eat a little bit more on Thanksgiving, things like that. You're around family, things like that. The social aspect of being around family is just as important.
Yeah. So that makes me feel a little better. Makes me feel a little better.
Don't beat yourself up. Do not do that. That is the worst thing to do.
Well, since we were talking about the holiday, then we'll go back to stress.
Yeah.
But let's talk while we're talking about the holiday. And you know how you mostly have your holiday meal.
Yes.
So thinking about that, what is the best way to manage the intake? I know servings, when we're looking at the table, and most time you have like 20, maybe, I don't know, 15-minute different things on the table. So how would you encourage people to think that process through before they indulge in the whole dinner?
You want to definitely pick and choose the items that are, the healthiest as possible, of course.
Okay.
And then I will definitely, once again, it really depends on how much effort you're willing to put in. Okay, so we know we're getting the collards, the mac and cheese, the potato salads, and all this other good work. Yeah, it's good at that point in time, but are we going to be willing enough to work double that amount to take that off or to maintain during that point in time? Or I've known some people who I fast until it's time to eat. Because they understand that they're going to indulge in a fair amount of
Well,
count.
that's true. Yeah.
And then you might, or just do small meals. You can do small portions, and depending on the times of the day that you eat, you can eat throughout the day a little bit smaller, so that way you're not feeling like you're beating yourself up, that you are enjoying this wonderful meal. Or even after you eat for the meals and things like this, these family dinners, take a walk after. It never hurts, Let's get the digestion going, let's go ahead and get the blood pumping. This is going to help with digestion of the meal that we just had, versus, maybe sitting down watching TV, things like that. Well, why not take
Watch
a family
football
walk?
games.
Yeah, I know it's going to be coming on, but, maybe we can do a 30-minute walk as a family, and it just adds in, once again, the aspect of social, we get outside, we get some fresh air, just kind of getting outside of the four walls. And then you're just going to feel better that, you did that.
Yeah.
Or you can do the workout in the morning. It just depends, but you just want moderation is always key.
Right. I like what you said about the smaller meals. That now, if you've got maybe 5 or 6 different variety of things on there, maybe a little bit of everything.
Yep.
Yeah, and
try it out and to see how you feel, and maybe especially if you go throughout the day. If you eat early enough, maybe you can have a little meal here and then go take a 20-30 minute walk. And you come back later on like, oh, I'm actually hungry. Let me go ahead and
Right.
eat a little bit more. And then you can balance it out that way.
Yeah.
That's typically how I try to do it, and it
Oh, okay.
works. But not all the time. And it's the reality of it. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to go ahead and eat everything. But I know I do have to make up for that later on.
Later on with the
If it's not that day, it's going to be the next day.
Because it is going to come around if
Yes.
you don't do something with those calories that you
Yes.
added to.
So you just
it's
add it,
gonna-
and especially in times like that, it's not just that day. You get the next day.
Yeah,
You get the
the
leftovers.
leftovers.
Then you got the turkey sandwiches and all these other things that start to come about with it. So really got to just strategically think it through of what you're going to do and how you're going to basically either maintain and try not to gain during that time.
Right, right. So incorporating some type of exercise
Yeah. So it's
during those days.
It's nothing different than what you would do on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Only difference is you're probably around other people that you're typically not around. You probably see other people that you're not typically seeing. If you're somebody that goes to the gym regular, bring them with you. I do that all the
that's a
time
good
with my
point.
mom. I'm like, hey, you're in town, come on.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
that's a good, and a lot of gyms will allow you to bring
Yes,
a
absolutely.
guest.
And you might
So-
they might have deals going on where you can bring a friend for free, things
Right,
like that.
yeah.
So you want to just, if you have a routine and you have family coming in from out of town, or you have friends that are coming out of town, bring them into your routine. That also shows them they're showing them, they are showing you support for your goals. So that's just
Okay.
as important. So once
Yeah.
again, that social aspect is really
Okay.
key.
So now, what about the water part of that? In exercising in water, I know we want to stay away from the sugary drinks, and like during the holidays, you have all your different punches and everything
Yes.
like that. So we still should try to keep that same amount of water that we normally
Absolutely. You want
been
to
encouraged with exercise and water.
Yes, definitely. Like I said, there's really no change in the sense of your recommendation for water intake, your exercise recommendation. You want to keep it as normal as possible. You want to make it a routine, and just think of this idea of this family meal or this special occasion is exactly what it is, just special occasion.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's a lot
yeah.
more behind it than just the actual food itself.
Right,
So the food
right.
is just like I talked about. It's just another part of this day.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
appreciate it, and you appreciate everybody is around, but just try to stay to a normal pace as much as possible.
Yeah, that's good. That's good because it shouldn't be centered around the food. at
No, it's
all.
not about the food,
That's
but it definitely, but it does happen.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
a lot of
It's
our
real.
holidays, that's
Yeah.
you sit down at a meal. This is where we talk, we have conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but there's other ways that we can move around as a family too.
Yeah, and that's why we look forward to Thanksgiving. But we should be thankful all the time and
Yes,
eating well all the time.
absolutely.
Even in, I know we're not talking about nutrition to that point, but looking at preparing, thinking about that, we need to make sure we are preparing healthier food.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can make modifications, I mean, I know, pass it down a family tradition. It's, you have, the moms and the grandmas and the great grandma's recipe, and I absolutely understand that. And if there's a way that you can keep that recipe to the healthiest option, definitely try it.
Yeah.
And especially if it's good, or if you decide to keep those family recipes the way they are. Once again, just being mindful of everybody that's around you. Something like salt intake.
Yeah,
How much
yeah.
sugar are in things, because that does make a difference for other people if they can enjoy it or not.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Now, all right, stress. Let's talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that, but then I want to make sure that we talk about diabetes and
Absolutely.
exercise.
We can do that
So,
as well.
so you want to do diabetes first, so we make sure we don't run out of time.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about diabetes and exercise because November is Diabetes Awareness Month.
Yes.
So let's talk about the impact that exercise has on diabetes.
Well, diabetes is it varies, okay, but among some individuals, we have the type 1, type 2, we even have diabetes that happen during pregnancy, things like that, and it does differ from person to person.
Right.
But when it comes to exercise, the recommendation is still 150 minutes.
Okay.
We're still wanting you to get aerobic exercise, your resistance training, and even your flexibility, your mobility exercises like that are just as important. So your recommendations don't necessarily change, but what does change is making sure you're paying attention to your sugar levels, because
Okay.
that is what's going to be the most impacted. And it does vary depending on the person. Somebody who checks their sugar level regular, that, before you exercise, you need to make sure your blood sugar levels are in a healthy range or in a proper range before you exercise. If it's not, we need to get those sugar levels up, because when you start to exercise, your body is using those immediate sugars, and that's going to cause you to basically have a low blood sugar level. Next, we're not feeling too good, and we're trying to figure out what's going on.
Right, right.
But it's really depending on the timing of when you're eating. And then you really want to just make sure you're also taking care of your medications. Make sure you're taking medications. I know at times we kind of get against our medication. We don't want to do it. I don't want to follow directions. But following directions is important, because as your exercise professional or whoever you're working with is depending on you to take those medications properly.
Right.
So that way they can monitor your exercise intensity properly and monitor how you are exercising, making sure you're safe. But there's always an emphasis on aerobic exercises. I personally like to recommend the combination trainings, such as HIIT trainings, so the high interval trainings, where you have high intensity for a little bit, then you rest and you bring the heart rate back down. High intensity, bring the heart rate back down. Just that way you can also get some resistance training involved with it.
Okay.
But the recommendation is the same, 150 minutes, maybe doing about 20 to 25 minutes, daily if you can, but ideally 3 to 7 days a week with no more than 2 days of rest in between.
Okay.
So the positive effects that come with exercising, and that actually affects your insulin sensitivity, it lasts up to 48 hours. So the goal is to keep that consistent, so that way when you stop exercising, it's still going. But when you completely stop on the third day, it starts to go in the other direction. We want to keep it consistent, so that way your body knows, okay, this is what we're doing.
Okay, what did you mean by that? The high intensity? What examples would be?
So Tabata trainings, or circuit trainings, things like that. So high intensity is an interesting word. That word intensity is where everybody gets kind of like, oh no, I don't know if I want to do intensity.
Right.
But intensity is really depending on you. How do you feel when you're exercising? So for somebody, a walk around the track might be high intense for them. Their heart rate's elevated on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being this is the hardest thing they ever done, and 1 is like I'm watching TV. They might be at a level 8, versus somebody else that walk around the track might be a 2.
Okay.
So it does vary. So that high intensity is we're working hard, and we have our heart rate up, we're breathing heavily, and we feel like we're actually getting a good workout.
Okay.
And then you kind of recover from that, and then you bring it right back up.
Okay, so it's like a rest period in between.
Yes. So you always want to give yourself a small little rest period, just so that way your heart can recover, and then you will bring it right back up, so you can give yourself full effort.
Okay, that's good. And now let me ask you this: with diabetes, I've heard people say their blood sugar is up, and then they say, "Oh, let me go exercise. Let me go take a stroll."
Yes.
So that is true to it. That you
Yes.
mentioned earlier that it does decrease your your sugar level. Okay.
So think if we have kind of that scale again, if we have a high intensity or high levels of sugar, and if you decide to go take a walk or a stroll, your body's going to use that immediate sugar that's kind of staying in your bloodstream to actually feed to the muscles, so that way you can burn the extra sugar. And on the other side, if you don't have enough sugar, we want to give you a little bit of carbohydrates, so that way we can get your body to a proper level, so that way we're using the sugar in the bloodstream and not pull from other parts of your body. So there is a balance between it.
So if you were a diabetic and if you had diabetes and first thing in the morning is your exercise regimen, you want to do your walking and stuff. So recommendation would, first, make sure you check your finger sticks, see what your sugar, your blood sugar is. And then would you recommend go ahead and have a snack?
It depends on what your blood sugar levels are.
Okay.
So if it's like, if it's basically below 150, I would recommend go ahead and have a snack before you actually start your exercise. Because if you start to exercise beforehand, you're just going to have, like I said, a low blood sugar effect, and you're not going to be able to perform the best.
Okay.
And then by the time it kind of kicks in, it's going to be about 30, 45 minutes later. That's the end of your workout, especially if you're on a time crunch. So, but it does vary. Some medications change the way that works, and you have to talk with your doctor about how that medication works, and understanding how the medication works. If not the doctor, maybe the pharmacist, they can explain to you in a little bit more detail, and even talking to your exercise professional. They should be able to help you, kind of guide you on how to do your exercise regimen.
Okay, great. That's great because the what I'm hearing, the number one thing that before you start this process, especially a exercise regimen, that you do need to check with your doctor or your provider to make
Absolutely.
sure that they are on board and know what's going on, so
Absolutely.
that they can help give you some recommendations.
And even what happens too is if you start to exercise regularly, you might notice that as you're exercising, your blood sugar becomes lower, and it might need some adjustments. So over time, you might have to do with some adjustments, and you talk with your doctor about that. So if you're noticing that every time you start to exercise, your blood pressure is continuously dropping down, it might need to be some adjustments in that medication, or you need a different type of medication, or for your scars, you may have to be taken off the medication.
Right.
So there's different things that can come from that, but you definitely want to just talk with your doctor, see what their thoughts are. And if they are, 100% behind you, then you talk with your exercise professional, and they will help guide you from there.
Yeah, that's great because I think, that's managing. That's all part of managing.
Yes.
Managing your diabetes. And because, we're talking about that as awareness and education piece. And even if you don't have an exercise therapist to do those things, you know your body.
Yes.
And you need to be listening to your body to know.
Absolutely.
But exercise is not an excuse. Diabetes is not an excuse not to do exercise.
Well, vice versa,
Yeah.
Diabetes is not an excuse to not do to exercise, but exercise is also not an excuse for you not to take your medication. So
Good
what
point.
happened is
Yeah.
we start to feel good, and we don't want to take our medication anymore. We make sure you talk with your doctor, because this medication might affect other things in your body. So if you have cholesterol problems, or if you have blood pressures, things like that, this medication might also affect that. So before you stop any medication, make sure you always
point.
talk with your doctor. And then as you're feeling these symptoms, track it. That's why I tell everybody.
I was just thinking about the same thing.
Track it. If something is out of the ordinary, write it down.
Right.
I jotted a note on my phone. It was November 9th at 3:27. This is how it felt. And, so that way you can give a well-rounded explanation to your doctor or your provider of what's going on.
Absolutely. That is a great point, because journaling, it help your provider know whether or not they do need to cut back on some of the medications.
Absolutely.
Because it maybe your finger stick was this at this time, and you've started doing exercise, walking religiously, faithful. Then so that will be an eye opener. So
Absolutely.
that's great. That is great.
Anything we can do to keep track of that and to, like I said, improve overall well-being, it's going to be beneficial for sure.
Yes. And you know what? We're not going to talk about stress. So
Not
you got to come back. So I did that deliberately so that you'll come back, because we really need to have an episode where we talk about exercise and stress management.
Oh, yes. And
Yes,
it's a lot we can talk about with
Yes.
that too.
So we're going to do that. But I just want to thank you. Great information. I mean, time just flies, but it's been great
does.
information. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing all this, talking about food and exercise and managing.
Yes.
So we appreciate you so much for coming here. I
Absolutely.
appreciate you. Love you to the moon.
Oh, I love being here, and I love you too,
Appreciate
Miss
you.
Wendy.
Thank you all for joining us, excuse me, on Family Health Matters. Again, we are here. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers, and we're here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. Thank you for joining us. See you.
This is Joy Brown, and I listen to Awesome Radio 106.9.